Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. In this video, I'm going to make one of these journals from start to finish. And basically, the idea is that we're making a small cover for a normal size journal. So usually what we do is we have a cover that's covering, the whole journal, right? But it doesn't really have to be that way, which is what's happening over here. We have a small cover and we have a large journal. So this idea was born out of receiving these fabric swatches from one of my lovely subscribers. Thank you so much. And they're so beautiful. Look at them. And basically I was thinking, what can I make with this type of thing? And I just made a little cover because I was planning to make a little journal like this. And then I decided to make a large journal and have a little cover. And that's what we're doing today. All right, let's get started. But first I want to show you exactly what you can expect from this video. So like I said, we're going to make everything from scratch. And I'm going to show you exactly how I made this cover and then what I did over here and then all of the, stuff on the inside. And we're going to do the closure together as well. And this tassel over here or bookmark. So everything will be done on camera. Some of the things I already have tutorials for, they will all be linked down below. But let me just say that this is a really simple and easy project and it can go so many different ways. And of course, I always like to give you lots of different options. All right, now let's get started. For this tutorial today, I am choosing to use this fabric. And the first thing that I need to do is make it sturdy. I'm going to achieve that by backing it with some cardstock. If you don't have cardstock, you can use things like the inside of cereal boxes, the blank side, or any sort of packaging that you might have. The blank side should be facing up. But I'm going to be using this cardstock. It's quite nice and textured, and I need to cut it to size. All right, so I'm going to mark how much I need to cut off, and I want it to be smaller than my fabric, so then I can cut off the excess. But in any case, I want it to be smaller than my fabric. All right, so I've marked where I need to cut. I'm going to make those cuts now. And here we go. That's perfect. So I want a bit of fabric all around. And now before I do anything, I'm just going to fold this in half. So I want the textured side to be facing up. So I'm going to fold it this way. There we go. Perfect. Folded, ready to go. And now I'm simply going to glue the back side of this to the back side of my fabric. I'm just going to apply a very thin layer of this Elmer's glue, and I'm going to spread it all around with my finger. You'll see in a moment. But because I'm also going to sew around, I'm not too concerned with how well I applied this glue. But if you're not going to be sewing around, then really make sure you get to all of the corners and all of the edges. And I want a very thin layer so that it's not seeping through my fabric, and ruining the front. And here we go, glue applied. And now I'm going to pop that onto the back side of my fabric and try and get it, perfectly centered. Didn't do that too well, so I'm just gonna try again. And just really adhere that as best as I can. And now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine. But before I do that, I want to fold. That's why I did that fold first, so I can easily fold this. And they're not really aligning, but that's okay because I'm going to be cutting this excess off. I always like to start with extra fabric everywhere, just in case, I do some crooked sewing and fabric moves and then I end up with a corner here that's fabricless. I just like to be on the safe side. All right, so now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and sew just a straight stitch all around the edges. So this is not something that you have to do. But if you are not sewing, then I suggest you use really strong glue that's not going to be peeling off very quickly. Another thing that I wanted to mention, it's very important to do this, to actually fold it prior to sewing, because if you didn't do any folds, see how when I open it, there's extra fabric here? See that? If I didn't make that fold before I took it to my sewing machine, once everything is sewn, I wouldn't have that extra give here for my closure, for the spine. So what you will have is very tight fabric, and that's going to keep the whole thing kind of looking like this and pulling on that cardstock. So what I do is I fold it first, and when I'm taking it through my sewing machine, I start over here, and I'm actually holding it bent. I'm not straightening it out completely, because if I take it to my sewing machine completely straight, what will happen is the stitches are just going to pull that fabric, and then I'm going to have that issue with it being tight. So the best thing that I have found is actually keeping it sort of bent as I'm going through. And then once I get here, I keep this side bent, and then I go through with the sewing machine. I'll see if I can actually film the process and speed it up so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm starting sewing on the wrong side, the inside, because that way I can actually see where the cardstock is. So here we go. All right, so I have back stitched there, and now this is really hard to film and hard to see, but as I'm sewing, I'm holding this bent. And now we're coming to that middle, and I kind of have to let it straighten out here. But as soon as I pass the fold, I start holding this up. And I'm kind of curving this as well, just to give me more give. So I'm holding the back side bent. You can't really see, but that's what I'm doing. And now the other side, I'm holding this side bent. And you'll see once it's done, it's still not 100% foolproof. That's really not the right word, but I'll show you. So as soon as I pass the bend, I'm holding this side up and kind of like curving that side as well. If you've ever had an issue with this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've never attempted this, you'll probably be a little bit confused, but that's okay. Just bear with me. All right, so here's my cover, and when I open it up, you can see I still have that extra fabric, so it's closing properly. Okay, so now what I want to do is I just want to trim all of this excess off. So I'm going to use my zigzag scissors and just cut kind of all the way to that cardstock. I'm just gonna get rid of any of the little things that want to fray, and it doesn't have to be zigzag scissors either. You can see the difference. On this one I use zigzag scissors, and on this one I just use straight scissors, so that's not an issue. Okay, the next thing that I did is I prepared my signature, and the size of the signature is, you know, one standard printer sheet, A4 size, or 8 by 11.5 inches, I think it is, folded in half. So that's the size. And I've prepared the signature off camera just so I'm not wasting time, but I have 20 pages in total here. I'll just do a quick flip through so you can see, you know, all of the different types of pages that I used, just for some inspiration. Some vellum and book pages and tea dye pages and scrapbook paper, some, you know, whatever I kind of have on hand, just to make it more fun. I like to mix them all up and have all sorts of different things happening. Avocado dyed paper, this is onion skin dyed paper, all sorts of things, right? 20 pages all up. And there we go, signature ready. I didn't do any embellishing. I did do a little bit of sewing on some pages. And now the initial idea was, I mean, this is kind of blending in quite a bit, but the initial idea was that's my cover for the journal, and I just do the binding. But then I thought it would be nice to add a second piece of black paper, and I've already cut it up, so it was an A4 size, the standard size, but I wanted it to be smaller than my journal so that you can actually see all of the pages. So I didn't really measure this, but I just kind of cut it so that when I put my signature in there, you can still see it all around. Probably could have cut maybe more off the sides, but that's fine like that. And then of course I wanted to add something here on the borders just to make it a bit more fun, maybe a bit more boho looking. And I'll show you what I did, and then I'll show you how I did it. So you can see how adding all of these things, you can see how much it adds to the final project, right? So what I did here is simply the following. First of all, we all have some leftover little pieces of, you know, scraps. So I've got 2 of those. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to ink all of the edges. And by the way, you can get so creative with this step. I like to use things, you know, scraps and stuff. But you can do anything up here. You can put stickers. You can put maybe something like this, some type of a ribbon, or something like this, something like this. This would look really cool. Anything will do, right? You can put some bling up here. I mean, possibilities are endless. I'm just showing you what I am doing. because I like to use stuff that I already have, and I don't know, I just like to use scraps and things like that. So what I did, these are some, I don't know what's from some party, these tissue little pieces, and I'm just using them because they're nice color. It's gold. I'm going to grab a few pieces and I'm going to show you how I actually sew it on in a moment, but just for first visual purposes, I guess, pop this on top, and then as I'm sewing, I'm scrunching just the gold bit. So you can see here the paper underneath, I'm not folding it or scrunching it, whereas this I was folding as I was sewing. I'm going to do that now. We'll speed it all up, but at least you will see the actual process. So you can do it at your sewing machine individually like this and then glue it onto your cover, but I actually like to go to my sewing machine straight away and sew it right through this piece of paper or cardstock. I hope at least you're getting ideas. I mean, there's just so many different things that we can do here. So I'm leaving a little bit of space here because I want that black to be kind of showing through. Pop my gold thing on top and I'm going to start sewing. Back stitch, and now I'm going to start folding the top piece. So you can even have ribbon for the top piece or a smaller strip of paper, whatever you have on hand. And as I'm going, I'm scrunching or just folding neatly, trying to stay in the middle. And when you run out of the top piece, you simply add another top piece. Maybe tuck it underneath. This is just basically sewing. I have a video on making paper ruffles, and this is basically what it is. I'll link that video down below. Once you get to the end, back stitch, I'm going to cut all of this excess off, and that side is done. So these are the paper ruffle rolls I was talking about. It's an old video of mine, an oldie but a goodie. And you basically just make a continuous paper ruffle roll, and then you can use these in your projects such as this. You know, look at these beauties. It's just never ending. It's an awesome thing to use for scraps, and they look so good on edges of pages and stuff like that. And then if you've got one of these, instead of sewing directly onto, you know, your project, you can just simply glue it on. So that video is linked in the description box. Here's just an example of using that on this envelope. Okay, back to the project at hand. So I have just sewn that on there, obviously, and I'm going to cut off all of the excess. And here we go, done. That's the top and the bottom, and it goes all the way to the back, obviously. And now, let's see, it's already looking better. When I add this, how's it looking? It's just the little details that I've added, and it's already, you know, looking so much nicer. And then what I've done for the other two, and I'm going to do it here as well, is maybe put something here. I really, really loved this lace here, but I don't actually have any of it left. So I'm going to use this lace, or what is it? Trim? Not lace. And I'm just going to glue that on the side here. Because I'm kind of going for that boho theme kind of look, I guess. It might even look better without it, I don't know. But because I've done it for the other two, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do it for this one as well. And I'm only going to do it to the front cover, not the back. So I've cut off a piece that fits perfectly there. And I'm going to just glue that on. I could possibly sew it on, but I'm not going to. And this is fraying here, so I tried the fray stop, but it didn't work. So I'm just going to apply extra glue, and then that's going to be, you know, the glue will prevent it from fraying further. Here we go, gluing that in place. I want to make sure it's nice and straight everywhere. And now on this edge that's fraying, I'm going to add extra glue. And this glue will dry clear. It doesn't have to be this art glitter glue. It can be any glue. And that's why I'm not really mentioning the glue, because it can be PVA glue. So you can see I've kind of saturated that there. And once that dries, it's going to be nice and it's not going to fray. And I know because I've done it on this one, and that's, you know, all dried and you can't really see the glue, and that's not fraying anymore. Alright, so both sides are saturated with glue. Normally I might give that a little bit of time to dry, but I'm just going to keep going with this project. So it's that one. And then this one. So the next thing that I want to do is bind this journal. And I'm actually just going to use embroidery floss to bind this journal. I'm going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And the most important thing to remember when you're doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch on a journal that has a small cover, you want all of your 3 holes to be going through the cover. You don't want a hole up here, because then this is going to be moving. And I'll show you how I kind of work that out. So all of my, need to make sure that my pages are sitting where I want them to. And I'm just centering everything as best as I can. So I'm going through the signature and the cover all at once. Usually I kind of, you know, do it in 2 steps, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, we're doing it all at once. So everything has to be nice and centered, or I like it to be. And now I'm not even going to measure where the center is. I'm just going to approximately find the center and hope for the best. But if you want it to be precise, then, you know, you can measure. I'm just gonna go with this and see what happens. I think that looks okay. It's a little bit more up this way, but it's fine. And now my other 2 holes, I want them to be somewhere around here. And I'm just going to do it approximately once again. Usually I like to be precise, but for this project, I don't know. I'm walking on the wild side. Yeah, that will do. All right, perfect. So you can see all 3 holes are going through my little cover here. If these 2 holes were going through, you know, somewhere else, then you only have 1 stitch holding this in place and it would be able to be moved around, and you don't want that. And now I'm doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because I've done it a million times and there's so many tutorials out there. Starting in the middle and go all the way through. I kind of keep this in there just to hold everything in place. I'm going to remove it now. Going from the outside in. Here we go. And now back through that, the only hole left, down the bottom, go through. I'm going to tighten everything over here. And now go back in through the middle hole. And there we go. Both threads are on the inside and they're on either side of this one. So I have one on this side, one on this side. Just make sure that it's all nice and tight. Probably could be tighter. You can see I'm pulling from the inside, but anyway, we want it tight. So I'm just going to make sure it's nice and tight, and then tie a knot and a bow, and done. Book bound, right? So that's looking quite good so far. And as you know, if you've made books before, the books want to open up, you know, when they're brand new. This would, if I don't add a closure, which is what I'm going to do next, if I don't add a closure, this is going to eventually stay kind of closed and not do this all the time. But I'm going to apply the closure now. And as you've seen on these ones here, it's a wraparound closure. So let me just open this one up. So I have one on this side, and then I have one on this side. This one, the back one, wraps around and ties to the front one. So many ways of doing this, but I preferred having the 3 here. I don't know, it's just how I did it, and that's what I'm going to do now in the tutorial. But obviously this is not the only way to add the closure. So I'm going to use this color seam binding. I think it's going to look nice. It's a little bit darker than the front piece. And I'm going to use these ribbon end crimps to apply that closure. You can just poke a hole and then thread the ribbon through the hole to apply your closure. But I happen to have these, and that's what I'm going to use. Or you can just even have a removable closure, you know. Wrap a little bit of lace around. So plenty of things that we can do. I'm going to find the middle. That's an approximate middle, and just those teeth are going to sink into everything, and that's going to stay put and not go anywhere. That's the front one. I'm going to do the same on the back. There we go. Now these ones that I have, they're very little, and they have this tiny little opening here, and now I have to sort of pop that through that opening, and it's difficult, but I find ways. So I'm just getting rid of those threads that are there, you know, in my way. That didn't really do much, but it doesn't matter. So I cut my ribbon like this so that I have that pointy bit, and then, you know, try and, what am I doing? Can't see anything from my phone. Try and get it in there, you know. I'm gonna try and use these my crafty tweezers and do it that way. And there we go. That's through. So I want to have a little bit here, and then maybe just approximate. This is the front piece, so it's shorter. Maybe I'll just, I don't know, cut it right there and tie a knot and double knot just to make sure. Here we go. And now I'm going to add some beads. So I've chosen some beads that I think are going to go well. I have some of these handmade paper beads, you know, just some different ones. I think I'm going to go with these ones here. I'm going to combine silver and gold. The silver one will be easy to thread through because it's got a large opening. And I'm going to do one of them with the needle. You know, sometimes it's easier to get it on there with the needle. And this one, who knows how I'm going to manage this, but I'm kind of rolling it up like that. And here we go, hope for the best. Just, you know, get it through any way you know how. There we go. That's going to look really nice. Oh, I'm loving that. There we go. So this one is just for fun, you know. This one's not functional. This one here we'll be using for closure. So this one is just there, just for looks. Yes, for looks. Probably could have given myself a little bit more of this ribbon to be able to tie that knot. Yeah, definitely would have been nicer if I had a longer piece there, but it doesn't matter. That still looks okay. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing here off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll do the back. All right, here we go, done. So it appears that I was quite stingy with this. I probably could have left this a bit longer, but I didn't. And also when you're tying knots, all of this double knot tying shortens the actual length. So I should have left this longer, but I didn't, and it's just gonna have to do. So now for the back, I need to have enough length to wrap around, and I want to wrap around once, and then also to, you know, have enough to tie that bow. So I'm just going to thread this through here. All right, that's through. And I'm just going to tie a knot or a double knot. I don't have to worry about this little piece because I'm not adding anything onto it. I'm just going to let it be. There we go. So that piece, the little piece, is just staying as it is. It's on the back. It doesn't bother me. And now to determine the length, I'm going to wrap around once. Come back. And then I'm going to be tying a bow here, like I did, you see. And what I did for the other two, I kind of left myself the same amount of thread here, of the seam binding, the same amount as I have here, because I'll be tying a bow right there, okay? But because I didn't give myself enough here, I'm just going to cut off a bigger piece. I'm going to go ahead and thread the beads on, and I'll be right back. I just wanted to mention, because somebody will probably ask me about these, I call these my craft tweezers. They're not actually craft tweezers, and I got them at a supermarket, but I call them craft tweezers because I use them for crafting. They're pointy tweezers, but they help me out with little things like this, right? All right, beads added. So I'm just going to show you how the closure operates. We have the shorter ones here, and then we have the long one here at the back. And then this one wraps around, just one full wrap around, and then it meets this one here. And you tie a knot, and you tie a bow, and Bob's your uncle. Oh, this isn't sitting well. Here we go. Much better. And then also what I wanted to do is add a tassel up the top. It just adds another extra little thing. And basically what this is, I have a tutorial on these. I'm going to link it down below. Basically, I use pieces from a broken hand fan and I make bookmarks. See? I just add things up the top here, and they are pretty much bookmarks, but they add, you know, just something a little extra on the cover, or on the spine, I should say, right? So for today's journal, I made this one. So I used the exact same color seam binding, you can see here, and also the same beads as well. And that goes anywhere in the journal. And there we go, done. It actually looks a lot better in person than it does in a video, but I'm quite happy with how they look, especially when they're side by side like this. And of course, obviously the inside of this journal is not embellished. This one is. You can see like little things poking out here and there, give it even more of a personality, I guess. So that's the tutorial on how you can actually construct these little journals. But I'm going to do a quick flip through of this one that's already embellished, just to give you some ideas if you wish to stick around. And you can see on this one here, on the inside cover, I just glued down a little something, you know, it's just a space, another space for us to decorate and work on. And then, oh, what's this? I think I did this in one of my tutorials for scrap pieces of paper. They're all scrap little pieces of paper stitched together, and I made this little pouch envelope type thing. I was planning to put stuff in here, but I haven't yet. So there's 20 pages in there, which I have then folded in half, which gives you 80 pages of, you know, 80 sides. Lots of place to journal. And I just did things like, you know, use some punches and some corners and some stitching around the pages, the usual thing that I do. Some stamping, stitching, extra little pieces of paper, you know. See, this little simple thing adds quite a bit of character to a page. And then, you know, little tabs like that, and some stickers and more stickers, just to make it fun and interactive. Stitched on another extra page here, what would you call it, flip out. And then I have a tutorial on these as well. 4 pockets, so you're making 4 pockets from one piece of paper or book page. And a little thing here. So yeah, just fun stuff. I'm going to link that tutorial down below as well. Really simple idea. You've probably seen it before, but here is an envelope. I've embossed this envelope, and this was also done. I might see if I can find that tutorial and also link it down below. We're just using scraps, paper scraps, you see. I did this in a tutorial as well. So I will link it down below so you can see, but we're transforming a boring envelope. Oh, and there's something in there as well. You know, into something a little bit more special, and using up scraps, pieces of paper and stuff like that. And then a little charm over here. This is a very mild boho theme. I could go all out with this type of thing. Just folded, this one was a ripped piece of paper, as you can see here. I just kind of folded it down and, you know, made it look into a characteristic, right? If that makes sense. And just little bits and pieces throughout the journal. Sewn some of this beautiful handmade paper here onto this page. This is a magazine image, and I've backed it onto some tea-dyed paper, sewn it around. I like to use these pages as the middle of my signatures in general. And then what have we got here? What's this? Okay, so I have a video of using junk mail envelope windows, in particular the windows, and this was one of the things that I made in that project. There's lots of things I made. I'm going to link it down below as well. Lots and lots of different projects that I made with that. So that's that one. And then here is the bookmark. It can go anywhere in the journals, just happens to be here. Just some random pieces of paper that I've stuck down, glued down, sewn in, whatever. A tag over here. And you can see I use the same seam binding just to, you know, create a simple little tag. Some stamps over here. Once again, that piece of paper folded in half, stamped and sewn around. And I love it. It looks really good in a journal. What's this? Pocket, tag, washi tape. Very simple. Because what else can you do with a book page, you know? So those are the kind of things I like to add. Love this map. A lot of the things in here, I was using things that my subscribers have sent me, and I think that, you know, some of you might recognize some of the things in here. And there we go. That's the flip through of this one. Beautiful. Such a simple idea that was born out of receiving these fabric swatches from one of my lovely subscribers. So many things that we can do and so many ways that a project can go. The very first thing I did was making the little cover, and it just went from there. And especially if you're making a little series like this, You follow the exact same steps for each one. You know exactly what you're doing. So you do all of your thinking for the first one that you make, and then you just repeat the process for the others. I hope you feel inspired. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.